Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha, jai Ganesha. Please visit our website at classicalyoga.org, and there is a donate button if you would like to help us out. And please stand up for the Hindu, yoga, religious, spiritual, scientific, philosophical lifestyle. It's all of those things. Today's podcast, Happy Holika, Pagwa, Dahanam, 2024. Now, along with Vasant Navaratri, Holika, Pagwa, Dahanam, is a Hindu celebration of spring. And if you listen to our previous podcast on the wisdom of childhood and the joy of spring, we quoted from Alexander Pope, "Hope springs eternal." Remember, hope, faith, asha, is primal to life. Don't ever take away somebody's hope. That might be all they have in the moment. Hope springs eternal. If you revisit that podcast, you'll see where Alexander Pope, who left a prolific body of literature, he really suffered from a lot of negative circumstances in his life for which he had to have hope. And some of the famous quotations in the West are attributed to him. To err is human, to forgive is divine. A little learning is a dangerous thing. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Now, like Diwali, Holika, Pagwa, Dahanam, these are festivals that are typical to all the religions of the world of the conquering of good over evil. Because we live in a world of duality, everything in its opposite. And human beings sooner or later figure out that it makes much more rational, logical, honest sense to be good as opposed to being bad or evil. So all of these religious stories in all of the religions of the world, and they are just that for the most part. There's some fact, but a lot of it is simply symbolic fiction. And we humans, this is what we do. We're storytellers. Look, people watch movies to this day, TV, and it's real, but it's not real. It's fictional. Hopefully there's some kind of a moral statement there, a teaching lesson. So if we look at all of our religious stories in that way, we can avoid the fundamentalism of taking our stories too seriously. Now back to Alexander Pope for a moment. He was considered a great satirist. And what is satire? Satire is using humor to debunk human stupidity, if you will. For example, Hallelujah, Maranatha, Shalom, Salam Alaikum. My name is Reverend Imam Paramswami Maharaj Archbishop, and I am a certified 200-hour baptism teacher and a 500-hour RBT, registered baptism therapist. And I run a chain of baptism studios, and we offer all of the contemporary forms of baptism. We have hot baptism, power baptism, doggy baptism, laughter baptism, even nude baptism for the more adventurous. And we offer a whole line of baptismal apparel. We have one-piece and two-piece and thongs to show off your baptism booty, of course. We have baptism towels and mats. We have our own magazines, Baptism Journal, International Baptism. And we're also offering communion certifications. And for 500 hours, you can become a sommelier. Now, I'm sure you'll get the satire here, but do you know that if you were to ask many, many people today, have you ever heard of yoga? They just might say, what are you, crazy? Everybody's heard of yoga, my goodness. There are yoga studios in every town, several. It's in the community centers. It's in the schools, some of the churches, on TV, books, magazines, Madison Avenue. Where have you been, in a cave or something? Okay. Then if you next ask, did you know that yoga is all about Hinduism, the Hindu religion, Hindu dharma? They would say, what are you, crazy? Yoga has nothing to do with religion. And certainly not Hinduism. And we know because we are 200-hour certified professional authoritative yogis. And some of us are even 500-hour registered yoga therapists. And it is we who offer the contemporary forms of yoga where you Hindus are not even allowed to teach, obviously. Not in public venues. And we offer hot yoga, power yoga, doggy yoga, laughter yoga, nude yoga, goat yoga, beer yoga, Kino yoga, Adrian's yoga. Now, this is clearly not satire. And what is the opposite? The antithesis of satire? Frankness, honesty, genuineness, authenticity. A simple Google search will reveal the facts that, first and foremost, the word yoga is a Sanskrit word, and Sanskrit is, by definition, the ancient Arya, another misunderstood term, which simply means, and profoundly, noble. The ancient Arya or noble language of the Hindus, it's a religious language. And the meaning of the Sanskrit Hindu word yoga is yuj, atman, brahman, cha. Yuj, to yoke, Y-O-K-E, to one's atmana, which is the Hindu understanding of the inner essence, a little bit different than soul. It means literally not your mind, nor your body, nor your emotions. To yoke to one's atmana, and then Brahman. And Brahman is not God. Remember, God is a Christian term and refers to a one male creator being. No, this does not apply to the Hindu yoga dharma. Brahman is a neuter term and refers to the greater source of what is the individual atmana. So this is the very meaning of the Sanskrit Hindu word yoga, to yoke to one's atmana and then Brahman. One is already now deep into the Hindu yoga dharma, Hinduism, the Hindu religion. Divorcing yoga from Hinduism is dishonest at best. And one could say even outright evil. Look at the hot yoga mess by the infamous Bikram Choudhury. In fact, to use the street term for hot, stolen, all of today's yoga, which is non-Hindu, is hot yoga. So these classic stories of good over evil, they're concurrent with the human experience. So on this spring festival of Holika, Hindus celebrate the defeating of evil in the famous story of the devotee of Vishnu, Prahalad, who had an evil father, King Hiranyakasipu, and his evil sister, Holika. Now, Prahalad was ardently devoted to Vishnu, and this truly upset his egotistical father. So his father actually tried to get rid of his son. He tried to have him thrown off a cliff. He tried to have him trampled by elephants. And nothing seemed to work. Finally, he enlisted the aid of his evil sister, Holika, who had gained a boon, she thought, that she could not be burnt by fire. So there was an all-consuming fire, and Holika, being the compassionate auntie, quote-unquote, picked up Prahalad and said, "I will save you." So they jumped into the fire, and Prahalad's boon from Vishnu was that he came out unscathed while Holika was burnt to ashes. Again, a symbolic story symbolizing good over evil. Doesn't always work immediately, does it, right? We know that bad things happen in life, evil happens in life, but obviously there comes a point when we realize that doing more good is certainly more beneficial for ourselves and those around us than doing bad things or evil things. And generally it will work out okay in the end. So on this day of Holika in India and perhaps other places around the world, there's often an effigy of Holika, and this is burnt up. And people spray abhir, or colors, all over themselves, a rite of spring, if you will, the joy of spring, the joy of innocence and joy and love and peace. Those wonderful qualities that mature humans seek. That inner innocence, that childlike innocence in the adult body, the love for one's fellow human beings. This love and compassion that defeats the lust in our life. Remember, as Saiva Hindus, we wear the Tripundra, the 3 stripes of Vibhuti, which is the holy ash of the Saiva Hindus. made from cow dung, purified cow dung. Another reason why the cow is so holy to the Hindus. And those three stripes represent burning up, greed, anger, lust, lobha, krodha, kama, by dana, dayadvam, damyata, by giving, by compassion, by control. And remember, lust is excessive desire for anything. Food, money, power, sex. So too, in the south of India, in Tamil Nadu, the Saiva Hindus at this time of year celebrate Kama Dahana, or the burning up of Kama, excessive lust. And in this case, Kama takes on the form of a little Cupid-like figure. It's probably where the West got the idea of Cupid. For Kama is this little cherub figure that carries a bow and rides actually on a parrot. So in this classic story, which involves Shiva and Parvati, Mahadev Shiva was deep in meditation, and Ma Parvati was getting a little bit upset that he wasn't paying any attention to her. So she enlisted the aid of Kama, the love deity. And Kama, with his arrows, shot an arrow into the third eye of Mahadev Shiva, at which point it awoke Shiva from his deep contemplation, his dharana, his dhyana, and with the third eye he burnt little Kama to ashes. Obviously, these are just classic stories, and they are just that. They're stories, and they're told in many different ways in Hinduism, in our Puranas, the many, many stories of the deities. They're all teaching lessons. But it's a reminder to all of us to be very careful with how lusty we get. So Mahadev burned up little Kama to ashes. But interestingly, there's a happy outcome, because the story continues that little Ganapati comes along and he starts playing with the ashes, and he brings them back to life, because Kama's wife lamented over the demise of her husband, and she beseeched Mahadev to bring him back to life. So again, it's a classic story of controlling our emotions, controlling our lust, and good over evil. So on our life journey, we're all faced with choices of what is right and what is wrong. Again, Alexander Pope, quote, "Fools rush in where angels fear to tread." In other words, be very careful about being swept away by the latest fad. The yoga craze, for example. The latest self-help teacher. The latest guru, if you will. Exercise your reason, logic, wisdom, discrimination, judgment. Actually, in the Yoga Sutras, a classic Hindu text that has been totally distorted, almost beyond recognition, by the spurious yoga movement. This Saiva Hindu guru says, first and foremost, exercise vitarka and vichara, reason and judgment. So in this spring season of hope for a better life for yourself and for those around you, here are 5 things to keep with you all of the time in general, and then we'll specifically see how these are played out in the Hindu yoga dharma. 1, wisdom. 2, judgment. 3, critical thinking. 4, logic/reasoning. And 5, generalities and specifics. Wisdom, by definition, the ability to discern or recognize difference. Who does not want to be wise? The ability to discern or recognize difference. 2, judgment. We often see this cliche or hear this cliche, do not judge, which is actually a judgment. But what is judgment? The ability to make wise decisions. See how they capitalize one upon the other? Wisdom is the ability to discern difference. Judgment is the ability to make wise decisions, sound judgment. 3, critical thinking. The need to distinguish between rational and irrational beliefs through logic and a thorough testing of the claims made. That's worth repeating. The need to distinguish between rational and irrational beliefs through logic and a thorough testing of the claims made. Remember, we all have beliefs, we all have faith, but we don't want to keep them in their initial stage of hope and assumption, but carry them through to a conviction and a guarantee. But note in that definition that we do this through logic. That's step 4. Logic and reasoning. Classic logic is perception, inference, comparison, testimony. You see it, perception. You do your homework, inference. You compare it with something else. You get final testimony. This is actually the scientific method. From a hypothesis to a final conclusion. Step 5. Always discern between generalities and specifics. For example, in general, people exercise, people stretch. Specifically, however, Hatha Yoga are Hindu devotional postures. And interestingly, among all the classic Hindu yogas, and really all one has to do, interestingly, is go to a Christian church, certainly a Muslim mosque, and ask them what is yoga. They'll clearly tell you that it's Hinduism. Ironically, they often know more than many Indian Hindus, and certainly the spurious yogis. They clearly know that yoga is all about the Hindu religion. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga, hatha yoga, mantra yoga, japa yoga, nada yoga, nata yoga, kundalini yoga. And of all those yogas, the wise rishis said to keep one of them secret. Take a guess. The only one that's out there today under the guise of the misuse of the Sanskrit Hindu word yoga. Remember, which profoundly means to yoke to your soul. It really has nothing to do with the body. That's why the prefix is important. So Hatha Yoga are Hindu devotional postures. And all of the classic texts on Hatha Yoga, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Siva Samhita, Giranda Samhita, Siddhasiddhanta Padati of Yogi Gorakhnath, they all beseech Mahadev Shiva, the epitome of the Hatha Yogi. And remember, Hatha is also adoration to Vishnu, Hara, Hari, Siva and Vishnu, and the moon and the sun, Chandra, Surya. But they all said about Hatha Yoga, Hatha Vidya Bhaveda Yavate Guya Niveda Tu Prakasha Varanam. This knowledge, Vidya of Hatha, is powerful, Bhaveda, when you keep it secret, Guya, and loses power, Niveda, when you display it, Tu Prakasha Varanam. Why? Because it deals with the physical body. And we clearly see what's happened with the hot yoga, power yoga, ad nauseum. So keep these 5 areas in your life to not get fooled, to understand and be able to discern between what is good and what is not good, what is good and what is sometimes outright evil. And do a simple search on the many scandals that have happened over the past decades in the yoga movement. Some of them have been devastating to the lives of many, many people. So this is not without consequence. So, as Hindus, we call these 5 the Panch Ayur Tattvas, or 5 vital life principles. So in general, wisdom, which Hindus call Samadhi, calm wisdom. 2, judgment, which Hindus call Vichara. Remember, Saiva Hindu Guru Patanjali, that was his second step, Vitarka Vichara, reason and judgment. Number 3, critical thinking. This is what Hindus call Vivek, and that's where the famous Swami Vivekananda got his name from, Vivek, discrimination, critical thinking. Number 4, logic and reasoning. This is the first classic philosophy of Hinduism, Nyaya, the logic of logic. Perception, inference, comparison, testimony, or in the Sanskrit, prataksha, anumana, upamana sabda. Remember, Hindus have many, many scriptures, not just one. Many, many deities, not just one. And it's interestingly that in the Shadarshanas, or the 5 orthodox systems of Hindu philosophy, one of them is the Yoga Darshana, the Yoga Sutras, that again have been so distorted beyond recognition. Nyaya Viseskamimamsa Vedanta Sankhya Yoga. So the first one, the grounding, the foundation is Nyaya, or logic, the logic of logic. Prataksha Anumana Upamana Sabda. And number 5, generalities and specifics, Sarveshya and Visesa. Never confusing these two. This is something that we often do, regardless of intellectual prowess. Seeing through this one will help to alleviate a lot of confusion. For example, devotion is a general term. One can be devoted to anything. And actually, that's a really secret ingredient of life, if you will. Without devotion to whatever, we won't really be successful. Now, in religious devotions, we have to discern between when we say, for example, baptism, Eucharist, communion. We know those are Christian sacraments, Christian devotions. When we use the word bhakti and yoga, bhakti yoga, puja, sandhya, yajnam, agnihotra, these are all specific Hindu devotions. Never confuse generalities and specifics. So these 5 vital life principles, Panchayor Tattvas, will greatly help you to overcome any negativity in your life, will help you to not be fooled by the latest fad, will help you destroy perhaps any evil that comes your way. So with these thoughts in mind, this grounding, this foundational understanding of life itself, have a wonderful spring celebration as you spring forth into ever deeper realizations. Having the courage to face the problems that confront you in life. As we're all in this together, hopefully seeking a greater love, light, and energy that is the essence of all human beings and our animal friends as well, as we go through our many life experiences. And hopefully experiencing a strength that comes, a peace that comes through strength and justice, wisdom. As we go from untruth to truth, humbly admit our lack of knowledge in many areas of life as we move to an ever more enlightened state of being, and trying to tap into that immortal nectar of bliss, if you will, that resides within all of us, that inner love that's there. Hence, Hindus chant Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotir Gamaya, Amrityorma Amritam Gamaya, Om Peace, 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 Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. Have a joyous Holika, Pagwa, Kamadahana. Happy spring.